It is the Practical Prayer Podcast pre-show program on Facebook and YouTube on New Thought Media Network. You counting the P's again?
Yep.
Okay.
I got a list of it easy.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, your mic is a little soft today, but I'm going to stop trying to figure that out. Yeah, well, apparently not. What do I know? What do I know? We'll set your thing to be automatic, and it'll just be fine. So we are we are live on the New Thought Media Network, and this is the pre-show. And kind of the idea here is that we're going to record an episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast in a few minutes, and this is the opportunity for those who are tuned in on the live stream to chat and comment and ask a question or request a topic. Not that we're necessarily going to change that because Carol has a good one queued up for today. But this is basically as close as we're going to get to interactive. So we're kind of doing the pre-show warm-up here. And by the way, anybody who's watching a replay of this at some other time, you can go to bethelight.com, be-the-light.com, and there's a little button there where you can send a message in, and we will take that into consideration for a future episode. Wayne is asking, how can a oneness faith spread like a virus of the mind? I think, therefore I am. I'm going to go with that.
How can oneness faith spread like a virus? I like that one.
I do like that one.
Yeah. Of course, I'm going to work with that probably afterwards because I like the way you phrased it. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
See?
We'll talk about it now. It'll come back.
It'll come back. It's right there in the chat thingy written down, so you can find it. And today is the first day of the new year. Actually, it's the second day of the new year, but it's still the holiday because the federal government thinks that you need to have a weekday off. And I guess that's okay, unless you needed to go to the bank or the post office.
You know what? It's the second day of the year. For me, it feels like it's months in.
Haven't been sleeping well, have you?
Well, it's been a whole lot of stuff going on, man. So, yeah, it's been a lot. But like 24 hours, come on, how much can you change? Can you change in 24 hours? But don't ask. It's all good though. It's all good.
Yeah, I think when we get around to playing the promo for the new on-demand class, it's still going to say Cyber Monday. So just as a reminder that my procrastination runs deep. but the discounts are still available, especially if you get to the online class through bethelight.com. So I've been spending the last week finishing up 2022 and prepping 2023, and really excited about some of the classes that we're teaching. We're doing Beyond Limits Online, which is the usual foundational class that we teach usually once or twice a year. And that's the jump start in New Thought principles and practices. And it's the only class that I ever would be willing to teach that talks about what it doesn't do, because it's beyond limits, and it's not a class about limits. But for people who are just starting with this, there's such a tendency to come in with some perceived limitation that getting beyond that is kind of the magic of the class. And by the time you get done with the 10 weeks of the class, you understand that the limits were not necessarily real or permanent to begin with.
Well, the operative word there for me is magic.
Magic?
You know, I like that word. I remember that class, obviously, because it was the first one I ever took with you. First one, I think, first official New Thought class I took. And
with a living teacher.
Right. So that might
so honored
for some explanation down the line, but yeah, it was just so much, and I referred back to it for the longest time. I still have it, so I can get to it if I need it, but it's really, really good. So, you know, it's a shameless plug in a way, but if you got questions and stuff, you know, take the class.
Yeah, and it's that class is all online. It was a completely Zoom virtual class, and it's on, I think, Wednesday evenings for 10 weeks. And it includes the practical prayer workshop, which is the one that we keep on talking about in the on-demand class, but it's got a live one. It'll be a Saturday afternoon in February, and the musical exercise at the end is Daniel Nahmod, so he's joining me live for that, which is just always a ton of fun. And the other one that I'm doing that's really exciting is it's an intuition class. It's called Activate Your Intuition, because everybody has intuition, but nobody talks about it. So, like, what is that? Oh, I just had a hunch. Well, can you cultivate that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you cultivate that.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we're going to do. That's a 6-week
When's
class.
that
That's
class?
that's going to be starting next Tuesday, I think. And that's also in the evenings. It's going to be hybrid. But as you know, we do a very good job of taking classes that are partially in person at the yoga studio and making them be up close and personal for the folks who are on Zoom. Remember the first time we taught a hybrid class, my teaching assistant, who lived almost within walking distance of where we're doing the class, had to stay home because she had COVID. So there's always a reason. So yeah, that's the fun and exciting stuff that I've got going on or coming up, and like I said, really powerful.
What's the date? Did you say what date it started?
It is a week from tomorrow, which would make it the... Stand by, please. The intuition class starts on the 10th, and the Beyond Limits class starts on the 18th.
Well, I always protest these Tuesday classes because I can't get there, but that sounds like the best. Maybe, though. How about this? You offer those classes so they could be downloaded later.
Always a possibility. Well, yeah. Usually, I'll have to check with the students because there's often a lot of personal sharing as people go through their transformation.
And put it on teacher. Just saying.
Edit the student responses out.
Yeah.
So the class would be like 9 minutes long.
Just saying.
Okay, there's a thing. All right, let us start this episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast. You ready?
Ready.
Here we go.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol. We're with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
And you wanted to talk about the Word.
I want to talk about, depends on who you say that to when you say the Word. So if
The
you
Word.
say that to Christians, that's going to be a whole different.
Okay, so you want to talk about the power of the Word.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Specifically, probably like in Proverbs where it talks about the power of the word, life and death, or death and life is in the power of the tongue. That is just mind blowing, especially when it comes to life. Woo, and you really see like the connection between your word and the actual, excuse me, I'm a little bit hoarse. The words that you've spoken and the actual revelation or evolution of those words in your present circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Amazing. It is. And in self-help, they call them affirmations. You create a word that's going to be indicative of something that you want to have in your life, and you speak those affirmations, and they're positive, and they have this remarkable tendency to draw those positive experiences into your life. And oh, by the way, positive is a matter of personal preference. There are some people who would be hoping for something that I would never want to have anything to do with, and vice versa. So positive is a personal experience of whatever it is that's bringing good or joy or uplift or warm fuzzies into our lives. And the other thing is that it's always working. It's a principle. It is a principle, and it's always working. And there are times when affirmations seem like they stop working. I'm doing this affirmation, and suddenly I did one for about money, and I got money, and I did one about a relationship, and I got a girlfriend, and now I'm doing one about my health, and I'm still ill. So maybe it doesn't work for everything. And there's a little bit of subtext behind the word, or the power of the word, because the power isn't actually in the word, the power is in the belief, and the word is used to describe the belief. And it is very possible for us, and I'm probably doing the entire podcast worth in one sentence here, it is very possible for us to say that we want something while believing that we don't deserve it or we can't have it.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm ready to say, right? It's
Yeah,
not.
that's a lot.
Because-
And game on.
Yeah. One thing that I personally found that's important, is that there's no time limit on this. You can speak a word and it's always working.
Mm-hmm.
You can forget that you spoke it and bam, it's right upon you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it could be positive, it could be negative, and you talk about the positive, and I think, and I brought this up, I chose this specifically because of something that I had experienced recently, and I figured since I'm not any different than anybody else, somebody is going. So I encountered a situation, and I sat for a second, and I said, God, this is my line, though. So God is used to this. Like, this is not what we discussed. And then I go on from there, and I started to think, and something just came to mind that I had said a long, and I mean long time ago. And here it is. And I thought, you got it. You mean it? This, it took that long. But here's the other thing. Just because you spoke it, it's like it doesn't just automatically happen. Like things have to be put in place and moved around, and other people may have something to do with it, and all of those component parts have to be brought together to create this reality. And guess what? Sometimes the reality comes and you're saying, this crap ain't what I wanted.
Right. Right.
It's not it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, there's wonderful power in the specificity of the word, and I'll give you an example in a second. But there's also a wonderful way to deal with that, or something better. So when we're saying an affirmation or speaking our word, I speak it for this or something better. And better, again, is subjective, and what that does is it keeps us from suggesting to ourselves that we're setting an intention or opening an invitation for something that we don't want or that could be better. For example, if somebody is up for a job and they like the job and pays $75,000 a year and they think it's going to be a wonderful, great job for them, there's the concern, if I pray for this job for $75,000 a year and there's another even better, more appropriate job closer to home with a better boss that pays 110, I'm saying no to that. So what we want to do is say, hey, this wonderful job opportunity, this chance that I have to share my gifts and talents and skills and abilities and be rewarded so generously, I am open to this good or something better. And that kind of gets us out of the way of putting a limitation that it needs to go the way that we said.
And that's the positive part, and that's like critically important.
Mm-hmm.
I think dissecting your words or looking at them and parsing each thing that you say is important. And I'm thinking about the thing that happened with me. Sometimes it's not even something that I asked a question, and I said, I wonder, no, I didn't say, I said, what would it be like if such and such? What would it be like? And I wasn't saying I wanted it in a positive way. Actually, I was being rather sarcastic. And not intentionally, but just the way you speak sometimes.
Right.
And
And
that's important to examine that, because what I said was, and Michael Beckwith says, anything you ask God, God will always answer. You know,
right. Not necessarily
God
on
will
your
answer.
timeline.
Exactly, right? God, maybe it takes a while to get that answer to you, in this case. But I thought about it, and you say this thing, and it's not what you mean, but you could say it in a sarcastic way, but it still goes out there. It's still word,
Hmm.
and God answers. So when I said to God, Spirit, this is not what we discussed. It most certainly is what we discussed. It's just not what you meant. So, paying attention to our words is so important, because when it said death and life, what is more important than death and life? You know what I mean? You
Well,
careful with that.
to us, where death and life is the very clear demarcation of when we've got stuff going on and what we can fit into our day planner. It's really important for us. It might turn out on a more universal, infinite scale to be not that meaningful. It's the difference between
Mm,
breakfast and lunch. It's like, okay, but there's
hmm
brunch, so there's an in between. Maybe it doesn't matter, except to us, but to us it does. So let's let it matter. So sometimes when we speak our word or we open ourselves up to some good, it turns out that the good was always there, or we used to have it and we stopped paying attention to it, and it kind of atrophied. And I will tell the personal story. When I was much younger, I was way overweight. So, and I think my waistband was like 44, 46 inches. So if I at that point were to set the intention to have my waistline be 38 inches, that's great. That's very healthy for somebody who weighs 300 pounds. To get back down into that. If, however, I then get to the point where it's a 38 inch and what I really want to do is be in a 34, I've spoken my word and set my intention for 38, and it's going to be really difficult to change my mind and get something different unless I can dispense with all the energy that went into that and get past the struggle. So what we want to do is set the intention for the feeling that we're going to have rather than the specifics of what the spec sheet looks like.
hmm
So I want to feel
Yeah.
good and comfortable and healthy and fit in everything that I wear and look good. Throw that into and look good.
Yeah. That's okay for a guy, for a woman, a sister, a girl. Hey, girls, we got a number, based on height and all that stuff, other crap. But, we got a number.
Mm-hmm.
So when you, and it may not be a weight number, it may be a size number,
Mm-hmm.
but we got it. So it's relative, right? It depends. Because I'm hearing, like, if I pick this number or something better, okay, fine. But guess what, Spirit? This here, right here, this is the number I want. You work with this, we'll be good. Right here, we good.
Okay, that works. And the important part is not the number. The important part is the feeling. Okay. I know that that number will give me the feeling that I want to have. Then what we're able to do is focus on the feeling and use the number as our shorthand from that. The part that we need to be really careful about, however, is that we don't get caught up in the number and lose sight of the fact that what we really want to do is be comfortable and fabulous.
Listen, wrong example, probably. Because you give me that number, I'm going to feel comfortable and bad.
Okay.
Okay, so I got you, but I'm just saying,
Synonymous in your mind.
whatever. Give me that
That's a
number.
word that means another word.
I understand that. I'm just saying, give me the number. I'm okay with it. But I hear what you're saying, because when I think about that number, I think about, I was there once. That was really great. You know, so what the heck happened? What happened? Okay, I got to turn around and get to that number or that feeling.
we're talking about the Word, and just for fun, I went and I looked up how many times the Word shows up in the Bible. And in the King James Version, it's 745 times of the and Word together. That's a lot. That's a lot of use of the Word. You know, and the famous one is the beginning of John, where he says, the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, or slightly different order. You can correct me, if you must.
No, it's not important, but I do think that we want to make sure that we understand the interpretation that we're dealing with here.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you and I are talking about is the spoken word, power of that's in the tongue. That's why I picked the Proverbs text. Now, John is over there talking about the word being Jesus back in the beginning. And that's where I have to find the right word so that I'm not offensive. But I think there's a distinction that needs to be clarified with that John's word and the one that's in Proverbs. Because John is specifically talking about Jesus, the person. But New Thought sees it something different. So we always want to make sure, we want to make sure which interpretation we're looking at. Now, the New Thought interpretation, wildly more effective in our life, I think.
Yeah, and if you think about Jesus not being the guy walking around Jesus, but the Christ light, and that Christ light can shine anywhere, anytime, for anybody, then suddenly there's really no need to translate. Because the Word is our ability to set a conscious intention and invite something new into experience. And our Word activates the creative law that creates everything. So we are partners with this principle, and it is always responding to our intention. And we get to solidify our intention and focus it by using words, because words are specific. Feelings and thoughts and ideas are squishy. And words let us actually specify something and describe it and define it, and activate the law, and then bring something different into being. The words are secondary, and this is the part that they address with the word in that part of Scripture, is that it's not about the words that we say, it's about the words that we believe, because it's a little more complicated.
I'm with you 100%, but I got to roll back for a second.
Okay.
Something that we both said, we agreed, and I think the pre-show or at some point, we talked about how it's easier when you don't have to unlearn something.
Ah,
You
yes.
don't know something.
Yep.
And I guess what I bring is the part where I know what people know from the traditional teaching or traditional indoctrination in terms of the interpretation of Scripture. I know what they're bringing, and you gotta undo that and redo it. And I think the redo space, and I'm going to use New Thought, but the term New Thought, the redo space is so wonderfully freeing, but I got to get you there. And sometimes there's a nuance of a definition that will get in the way. So what you're saying is wonderful, it's great, but I got to make sure that might be, some Christians that are still thinking about the word as a person.
Right.
And it's not, it's that Christ consciousness thing that's going on back there, that we, as Christians, that teaching isn't necessarily in the top 10 things that are taught.
And it is very difficult to throw away a lot of stuff that we've known or lived or learned and keep other parts, because it makes us feel like we're being really arrogant and cherry picking the whatever we grew up with, which in fact might be what we're doing. Maybe that's what this whole thing is about. But it's also, as you point out, the matter of meeting people where they are and not saying things that are so A, true, and B, offensive. They're not going to be able to hear them.
Yeah, and it's there. I think I'm really very sensitive to it because I made the transition, so I'm
Yep.
really sensitive to it. But
Yep. And you have that very long history in the other tradition. So that
yes,
is a well-worn groove.
yeah. But even in that, very rarely now do I run into a roadblock because I see both sides of it, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But I never take for granted everybody does.
Hmm.
Not that I'm so special. That's just my experience.
Right.
I never take for granted. I use the term Christ consciousness a bit, and when I first started using it, it was, to me, I understood it immediately and blah, blah, blah. And now it's like when I say that to people without an explanation and the sensitivity of what that means, they're looking at me like, okay, she getting ready to talk about some weird new age stuff. Like,
Who's this arrogant woman who thinks that she's got Christ consciousness?
yeah, and so then you got to go, and I thought, okay, you got to just do this really slowly and gently. I don't want to hurt you.
And you don't want to lose the crowd. Let's take a break and come back and talk about more of the power of the Word.
You can put practical prayer to work in your life, and Reverend Bill Marchiony can help. He is offering an online class that teaches you to create your own practical prayer in 5 weekly 1-hour sessions. The final hour brings your practical prayer together, anchored in live original music by a notable New Thought musician. Practical prayer is based on the most effective prayers found in religions and spiritual practices all over the world. Use it to deepen ever more fully into the truth of your spiritual nature. It's the core of a transformational spiritual practice that's simple, even if it's not always easy. Reverend Bill is also available for private spiritual counseling prayer sessions. Together, you'll lean into the challenges you've experienced in life and explore the transformation that's possible through practical prayer. You'll uncover old, hidden beliefs and uproot them to make way for the life of your dreams. Everything you need to know is on the website at b-v-light.com. That's b-v-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony about how the Word.
The power of the Word and the power of your Word and the power of everybody's Word and what happens when the Word doesn't seem to have power. And it leads to me really quickly into the notion of hiding our light under a bushel, which was also somewhere in Scripture there. Because our Word is powerful, and our beliefs do activate the infinite creative power that creates everything. And when we hide from it, or we shirk it, then it doesn't seem like it's working. Even though, as Ernest Holmes said very cleverly on page 52 of the Science of Mind textbook, that the law always works even when it works by appearing not to work. Because if you believe it doesn't work, then it'll work by seeming like it doesn't work.
Yes.
Which seems like a tremendous paradox, but is actually a wonderful way of understanding the partnership that we have with our Word.
Mm-hmm.
If I say something and I don't believe it, I'm not going to get the result of what I said. I'm going to get the result of what I believed. And that always happens. And before the break, we were talking about having to be gentle and gingerly with people who are coming from a traditional religion and coming into New Thought, because we say things that are that they sound woo-woo, to use a technical term. They sound a little woo-woo. And the reason for that is that there's a tremendous simplicity to the New Thought teaching. And the thing that it requires is that we give up blame. And that's, of course, one of my big things, is that we don't get to blame God when we don't get what we want. Because we know that God is a principle, that creative law is the one that we call God, that love, that law that shares itself as everything. Mm-hmm. And that we're activating it. And God's not doing us a favor by responding or not responding. God's always responding. And if we are getting an experience that we don't want, then we have to deal with the fact that we brought that on.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely. I think in the very beginning of what you said is that it's what we believe,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always working. And very often, not just in the religious space, but people say things that they don't mean,
Mm-hmm.
or they say things in a way that they didn't mean it to be that way. Sometimes we say things as a joke, or a
Oh,
cliche or something.
cliches can be horrible.
Yeah, and it's working, and you think, well, hey, matter of fact, remember I said that I just experienced something, and
Mm-hmm.
it came back to me that it was a cliche in a sense. Yeah, it was pretty much a cliche. And I thought, well, that's not what the intent was, but that's what the words said. And that's so I guess spirit doesn't deal in cliches and jokes and stuff that, that we don't mean to say. I may express it in from my cultural language, and somebody else hears something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular instance, I said something and I thought I wouldn't have ever thought that that would be anything.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, and
on the other, yeah,
that's the power of the word, and that's why we get to
hmm
watch the words that we're using, because they will wind up meaning what they actually mean rather than what we claimed that they meant.
yes,
So, you know,
yes,
there's the when you have a friend, or if you notice an acquaintance who uses phrases like "that's a pain in the ass" or "a pain in the neck,"
hmm
pay attention to how often they are getting medical attention for things that relate to their neck or back
yeah,
or backside.
yeah,
You know, there's a visit to the chiropractor or to the proctologist or somebody or some ointment in their future.
yeah. Or I'm dying to know. I'm
Oh
dying to
yeah,
find this out. Or this is killing me. I thought, whoa,
yeah,
wait a minute,
that's
no,
right. Give yourself a
that's
little more time than that.
that's right. And that's not silly. I need to say that. That is not silly. That's for real stuff.
Oh yeah, and you know, there are people in my family who lately have been saying that they have a feeling that, and then they'll express a thought. It's like that wasn't a feeling, that was a thought, and the thought's very important. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is because I'm not going to argue with somebody's feelings. If somebody's feeling sad or upset or angry or hurt, it's like, okay, that's where they are. And if they say, "I'm feeling like you're a jerk," it's like that's not a feeling. That's actually a judgment with a
Mm-hmm.
thought packed into it, and we will discuss that. But I point out that they're expressing thoughts and labeling them feelings, because I'm then going to, now that I've changed the subject, we're going to get to talk about the thought and whether the thought was correct or not. I'm talking a second about words and the tendency that we have of using our words. When I was in the radio biz many, many moons ago, a friend of mine did sports play-by-play. And I think he was calling the games at Rutgers. It was a local radio station we were working at the time. And he was the most clean-spoken person I've ever met. He never used foul language. And so I asked him, I said, why not? He says, because if it's okay for me to use those sorts of words, then it's going to come blurting out on the air, you know, when somebody scores a miraculous basket. So just not going to do it. And you know, that instruction stayed with me a long time. And he actually had a very successful career, you know, in the NBA, and continued to be very clean spoken. But the way that you speak is the way that you speak. So we can't afford to go slumming in our language and expect that it's not gonna have an effect.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna have an effect. You're right, and those kind of once you come into that knowledge or that realization, um, taking your time slowly, it's worth it because when it hit me, the first thing I thought of was, oh my God, I can see why certain people take a vow of silence. So I think I'm going to take a vow of silence for, wait a minute, I always do something like on the first 21 days of the year. And I said, I'm taking a vow of silence for 21 days. I thought, no, I got to do the podcast because I can't do that. So that's not realistic. But,
I wonder if you can assign a vow of silence to somebody else.
Would be nice.
That would be nice. It just seems like it would be nice. It's probably a little more controlling than I want to be, but
maybe. I gotta since I can't do it, it's cool.
Of course, I know what would happen, being a good metaphysician. If I insisted that somebody take a vow of silence, the first thing that they would have to tell me that they wouldn't be able to is somebody's stealing my car, or there's a fire, or something else that I, in hindsight, really would have preferred them to share with me.
Yeah, right. Leave that one alone.
Yep.
And leave it alone.
So I am okay being open to the guidance and the information coming in whatever way that it does.
Yeah. So we got it. The power of the word. There's power in our language. And I like the way you always point out positive. It should be positive, powerful, and personal and all those other pieces, but positive, that's the biggie. If it's not positive, hold it. Think about it for a second. Probably not worth saying. How's it going to feel coming back?
Yeah. The infinite creative power that creates everything. Don't know no. When I say I want to have no loneliness, I want to have no sickness, I want to have no poverty, what it's hearing is sickness, poverty, and loneliness. So it don't know no. And that's why we need to be positive. We need to be able to set the intention and speak the word for what it is that we're looking for, what it is that we're desiring, because the response is going to be yes.
What is it we're looking for in this? And what could possibly, I know I'm taking this out too far, but I do everything. I take everything too far. But what could possibly come out of this that I don't want? To me, it's worth it until you make the transition and your language is different and you do it, very automatically and with ease. But until then, I really do try to examine what I say before it comes out. And sometimes it causes me not to speak as fluently or as eloquently and with ease as I would like, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely worth it. There are times when being able to specify what it is that we don't want is really important. If you read, for example, the entire Declaration of Independence, it's got some really flowery stuff at the very beginning. And then there's a whole list of things that we were pissed off about that we were telling England we didn't want anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
And in a practical prayer, we get to do the same thing because it's a 5-step process, but there's room for another step in there. Because if we get to that affirmation where we're claiming the good that we're looking for, where I'm claiming I have my perfect health, I have a wonderful, loving relationship, I have plenty of money to spend and to share and to save, and we don't believe it. And we get a little ping out of the back of our mind that says, it's not true. That pain, that illness, that cough is going to continue. Then instead of just glossing over it and hoping that it goes away, we can address that very specifically by talking about what the experience is that has no power, that is a temporary illusion, and we get to move past it. And that's the power of the word, to be able to Emma Curtis Hopkins talked about it as the denials, to be able to look at something and say, this is not true, this has no power. And the denials and reaffirmations are also in spiritual mind treatment. And being able to turn away from whatever that indicator is presenting itself and describe exactly why that's has no need to be the case. We don't wish it away or pretend it away. We just basically kick the legs out from under it because there's no truth to it. If we're looking at health and sickness, then health is our natural state of being, and sickness is a temporary aberration. So we can look at the sickness, we can describe it, we can have the diagnosis, we can have the prescription in hand, and at the same time know that perfect health is unfolding for us right now. And maybe it's going to be taking the pill, and maybe it's going to be going to the doctor, and maybe it's just going to be allowing ourselves to come back into that space of health and harmony and equilibrium. It works. it works.
Yeah.
So there's no voodoo in using the negative words, but we want to end with the affirmation. We want to end on the positive note. We want to open ourselves up to that new belief and that new experience, and that's what activates the law.
And I have no idea why I picked this subject and thought we could talk about it in one episode. It's going to have to come up again.
Of course.
Because the word that you just said is believe, what you can believe. And sometimes, and I'm looking at this a lot, not just for myself, but others as well. You say things and you could say them, but if you don't believe it, so people are saying, I am a millionaire, I am whatever, however the affirmation goes, I'm a millionaire, but you don't really believe that. So I'm thinking, okay, fine. Bring it down a notch or two, okay? So you can believe. Bring it down a buck or two. Can you believe in 150,000? Is that an easier? Well, yeah, I can do that. Well, let's start there.
Oh, start there.
But the reality is, some people can't believe more than 60,000. That's cool too. No shame, no shade. We'll work our way up. But I think that word you used is so pivotal.
Yeah.
So important. Believe. It's what you can believe.
Yeah. Let's take another break and then do a prayer on as good as we can imagine and even better.
I love that one. Yeah.
Get inspiration in an instant. God calls are the gentle and uplifting moment of truth to help you remember that the bright light of God's love is shining right now as you.
It's your God Call with Reverend Bill.
Start your 2-week free trial today, and you'll get a phone call 4 times a week from Reverend Bill with an uplifting half-minute message filled with insight, wisdom, story, and fun.
Let your light shine.
You can answer the call to listen to it live or let it go to voicemail so you can hear it later. After the free trial, your subscription is just $5.95 a month. The details are at godcall.org. God calls are disruptive, intentionally.
Whenever you write something, put on a gold star.
They take you away from your routine to remind you about the truth of who you really are. They come at random times between 8:15 a.m. and 6 p.m., so you won't be expecting them. And somehow, the message is exactly what you need to hear at the time.
Magic is loose in the world.
It's a moment of motivation in the middle of your day. Find out more and start your 2-week free trial now at godcall.org.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
We have been talking about the power of the word, or the power of words. And we have agreed that they are very, very powerful, and that the word and words means different things to different people. And also that it's more about our belief than the specific words that we're using.
Yeah.
So it gets complicated. It's actually very simple, but it can be very complicated to try and understand all in one sitting.
So we're going to make a commitment to talk about this in the future again.
Of course, we will continue talking about it. It's kind of the same thing we talk about every week, but from different perspectives. And yes, we will revisit this.
I love how you say we're talking about the same thing from a different perspective, and I'm thinking when you say that, yeah, okay, yeah. But this is like a lot of stuff, and they're not all the same to me. This is and so, yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about this. But when I get to where you are, maybe I'll see everything as just one thing, from a different perspective. Right now, from the learning perspective, it's a long list.
It does seem like there are a bunch of entryways into this, and you can go and look around over here and then go look around over there, and eventually we do notice that they converge, and where they converge is on our belief system. So and our interaction with that creative principle, the power that creates everything.
I'm gonna be digging into that this afternoon. Where they converge. You just said that. I'm going to diagram this thing out. That's where I start.
Oh, well, good luck with that.
Listen, I think I'm going to get it by next week. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, don't give yourself a time limit. It's all unfolding in perfection. Well, you can use the prayer that we're going to do today.
Okay.
And you can apply this. The prayer that we're going to do is for our experience to be as good as we can possibly imagine and even better. And sometimes I claim 10% better, because usually people have some leeway. 10%, a little more, a little less, that'd be fine. If it's $100,000 a year job, it's $110,000. That's in the same ballpark, and it'll be okay. As good as we can imagine, and even better. So we're not going to put any limitation on the experience that we're having by saying it has to be like this, and I'm not going to accept anything better. And we don't need to be specific about exactly what it looks like. We can understand the tone and the texture and the feeling of the experience that we're having once we've got this new experience in our life, and then invite that to come into our lives in whatever way it's going to, and have that be as good as we can imagine and even better. And the principle works for every area of our life. It works for our health and our physical experience. So if there's an illness or a discomfort or a grumpy portion of our body, the prayer can apply to that being comfortable and healthy and vibrant and vigorous and whatever the opposite of grumpy is. And not just to the point where it doesn't bother us or interrupt us, but that we don't even notice that it's there. As good as we can imagine and even better. Same thing for our finances and our prosperity. It works in our income, and it works in our relationships. So a wonderful, deep, committed, loving relationship, if that's what we're looking for, or a fabulously supportive group of friends, or a workplace where I'm able to do my work and share my gifts and connect with my colleagues and be really appreciated and get generously compensated. Whatever it is that we're looking for. The prayer is as good as we can imagine and even better. And we start by turning our attention away from the situation and the circumstance in the world around us. We bring that notion of what it is that we're inviting, and we take it within, and we open our awareness to that infinite creative power, that divine presence, that one that shares itself as and through and in all of its creation. It's God, or it's nature, or the universe, or spirit, or the Big Bang, or a happy coincidence, however we describe it. It is that one which has been sharing itself since the very beginning of time that continues to unfold and reveal itself through its creation in so many, many, many different ways. And to know without any question whatsoever that because that's all there is, there's that divine presence revealed in an infinite variety of ways, that each of us is an expression of the one. Each of us is a unique way that that divine presence is revealed here in experience. So we can each, with complete integrity, honesty, and clarity, state, I am that divine light of God's love shining right here and right now. And knowing that's the case, we can claim all of the good that we are open to. Whatever that feeling of satisfaction, of contentment, of uplift, of joy, of harmony, of completion, of wellness and oneness and wholeness that we feel as we have this next experience. We open ourselves to that. We invite in that experience. And we claim to be supported in the experience with the full power and presence of that infinite creative law. That creative law is always saying yes. And as we open ourselves up, as we speak our word of intention into that law, it is saying yes. In whatever way we are asking. The law is saying yes, and it's unfolding as good as we can imagine and even better. We are putting no limitation whatsoever on that law. We are opening up full blast. And the law is already responding. The good is already coming into experience for us and through us and as us and with us. And it shows up in ways that are completely predictable and easy to understand, and it shows up in ways that we never would have guessed. Only in hindsight can we say, oh, now I understand how that could work. And the good continues to unfold. As good as we can possibly imagine, and even better. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the stories of success that we get to tell. I'm grateful for the wonderful way that the law is already responding. And I am grateful to be able to speak this word on behalf of each one listening and release it into that creative law that has created everything. And to know without any question, doubt, hesitation, that it is now creating this. The good is happening now. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com,
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
It seems like every time we do an episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast, we create 3 or 4 more episodes that we still need to do.
Yeah, well, I got a list of them. So now what I do is put bullet points under it. So I know that this one, okay, we're supposed to come back to this. We'll do to make this like that.
Okay.
I don't still have, and we're in the backstage, right?
Oh, yes. This is the post show. So if somebody wants to put a comment in, we can actually respond to it now.
Yeah. So you can help me to understand how you listen, because for me, we need to talk about this some more. So I'll bring it back next week and the week after that. And, that's why I'm totally boring, because I'll ride something out until ride the wagon till the wheels fall off. Yeah. So maybe if you hear it like that, that's cool. Or if not, you like it, change, and we'll do it again, like the part 2 next month or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody about the way the podcast goes, and you had mentioned, I think last week, that we never finish a topic. Yeah. You start by asking about something, and then I wind up talking about something different, and it would just infuriate you. But it also occurred to me that if we planned this whole thing out and we knew what the topics were, we would have been done in 12 episodes.
No. You can. No. So you're talking about somebody who hears, and then I hear like it's infinite stuff between lines. So
okay.
I'm gonna go to that now. And by the way, you did not infuriate me. It's just what just happened. Okay.
I'm okay infuriating you, just so you know.
No, I'm not cool with being infuriated. That's not what I'm. This would not do that to me. I'm in learning mode. My whole life right now is in learning mode. So this is like learning how you think and how you see this going. So I make adjustments along the way. How else do you learn? You do it your way, you don't learn anything. So I apply that to everything.
There were so many things that I learned that I was so impressed with having learned when I learned them. And it turns out that they either were wrong or don't matter.
Who's to say wrong? It depends on the situation. Like I did the internet radio in 2007. Oh, maybe too many years after that. And it was just me. So this is the first time I'm working with somebody else. This is such a learning experience. I'm not infuriated by any of it. I'm trying to figure out, well, what the heck just happened? This is
good.
Not how I would have done it, but it's good. This is another way, and it appeals to other people and a broader audience than. Who wants to be stuck doing the same thing the same way all the time?
That's what I think. And there are 2 things that are going through my head. One, my kinder, gentler side is like, well, it's wonderful. She's getting uplift out of that. And then there's the troublemaker side of me that says, I wonder if I could infuriate her.
Probably not. Probably not.
And and back in the old days, I would have tried doing that just to see if I could. But now it's like that was just an interesting question.
Not that it couldn't happen. I'm sure it could, but my buttons are so far out there. My buttons are mine. They don't matter. They only matter to me. So that's just how it is. I come to learn and experience from you, and even the people that write comments and the comments that I get afterwards. Because people will text me or say, I heard the podcast, and I'll listen. What you like, what you didn't like, it's because when it's bigger than me. Everything is bigger than I am. So I let go of me. See what you got.
There you go. All right. Well, let us wrap up this post-show podcast program. And we get to do this again because we've just kicked off 2023 now. And we get to do it again for another 51 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Whee!
It'll be, before you know it, this has gone so quickly.
It has.
Yeah.
Like, I think 85 episodes we've recorded so far.
I can't even imagine. Doesn't feel like it.
It does not. But happy to do it. And let me just be the most recent to say it. Happy New Year.
You know what? I thought about that. I said, I got so busy talking and wanting to tell you so much. Did I say Happy New Year if I didn't have
You did. Oh, you Happy New
Did
Year'd
I?
me by text with some sort
yeah.
of a Giphy or something.
Yeah.
It was lovely and thoughtful.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.